just hit infinite. We're going to go over all the decks that I used to get to infinite, but the problem is this. There is an balance adjustment that just happened right now. So a lot of the cards that I was using to get infinite have been adjusted. Enchantress is going from 4-6 down to 4-5, and Rock Slide is also going from 4-6 to 4-5. And then there's going to be a buff to Drax, and there's a buff to Venom. So we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to talk about decks that are going to be good going forward, the decks that I used, and then also some decks that I want to try out. Let's talk about the adjustments really quickly. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Drax is now going to be 4-6, which is kind of like baseline stats for like White Queen and the old Rock Slide and the old Enchantress and Iron Lad. So this is going to give him an upside of 8. Typically, you want to play Storm, and then you play Drax or Jessica Jones behind the Storm. And then if your opponent plays a card there as well, then basically they're both going to end up as 8. So there are a couple decks that I want to try out. The one that I want to try out the most that runs Drax is going to be a full Guardians of the Galaxy team running Nebula, Star-Lord, Groot, Drax. It's mostly, and Gamora, of course, it's mostly a Daredevil deck, if you will, which runs the Daredevil package, which is Gamora, Professor X, and Spider-Man. Lots of fun things that this deck can do. I think this deck would be a bit better if it had Jeff. Jeff is such a good card. I just think Jeff is better than Star-Lord, but to keep it with the Guardians theme, there you go. Rock Slide. Rock Slide is getting adjusted, and this is basically a nerf to Darkhawk. Darkhawk has been the meta. This entire season has been based around 2 cards, in my opinion, Darkhawk and Killmonger. Made a video about that earlier this week, talking about how those 2 cards are very important. So they wanted to nerf Darkhawk, and they did that by adjusting Rock Slide. I think this is fine, absolutely fine. Enchantress, she was 4-4. They moved her up to 4-6 2 weeks ago. Now they're bringing her back to 4-5. I'm very happy about this as well. I wish they would just buff more cards and then see where they land, and they could see after 2 weeks that she was overtuned, so they're going to bring her back a little bit. And the one that I'm the most excited about is going to be Venom, who is largely been unplayable. 3-1 going to 3-3. There's a couple Venom decks that I want to try out. The one I want to try out the most is going to take advantage of Shuri and Nimrod, and then on turn 6, there's a pretty cool interaction where you play Venom in one lane and Carnage in another lane, and then you explode a bunch of cards. It's basically a Galactus turn 6 deck, and I'm hoping that Venom will be impactful, because it always felt bad that Venom was triggering a kill and taking the stats, but he wasn't himself adding more power to the location if you didn't have something to fuel an interesting combo like Nimrod. So now Venom being a 3-3, that's going to make him more effective for sure. Side note, there's some locations, and these locations are on the little bit more restrictive side, and they're going to make them appear less often. And I think a lot of people are going to be very happy about that. Now let's talk about the deck that got me to infinite. And I played several versions of this deck, and I just want to talk about this final build here, what build I'm going to use going forward, and then replacements. There's a ton of replaceable cards in this build, but I do want to talk about the cards that are generally not replaceable and that they are in the core part of this deck, and that would be Black Bolt, Stature, Rock Slide, Darkhawk, Polaris, Zabu, and Korg. Those are the core cards to make this deck. Basically, you're able to put stats on the board with Black Bolt and Stature and Darkhawk. So you got a Darkhawk package and a Black Bolt package, which is just Stature. Beautiful thing about Black Bolt and Stature is that they don't get blown up by Shang-Chi. They don't get blown up by Enchantress. So they're very powerful to play Black Bolt on turn 5, and then for 1 power, play Stature on turn 6. Now, because Enchantress is being nerfed, I will sub back in Miles Morales. So the traditional way to play this deck prior to Iron Lad was to have not Iron Lad, and it would be Shang-Chi, and then instead of Doom would be Miles Morales. Now, the only reason why Doom is in this build right here is because of Iron Lad, because if Iron Lad picks up on the Doom, it's almost always good game, because then you get 6 points for Iron Lad and then another 10 points for the 2 bots going in the other lanes, which is fabulous. Jeff is a card that a lot of people don't have, and then Nebula is also a card that a lot of people have. So I just want to say that this here is a more friendly build. Zabu was a battle pass card. A lot of people have Zabu. Darkhawk is going from pool 4 down to pool 3, or series 4 down to series 3. Enchantress got nerfed. Rockslide got nerfed. Stature is series 4. So you may want to consider spending 3,000 tokens on her. I just think there's a lot of good cards right now. But this runs Nightcrawler and Cloak. So the 3 cards that can trigger Miles Morales cost reduction down to 1 would be Nightcrawler, Cloak, and Polaris. If you have Jeff the Land Shark, you can put in place of Cloak. If you replace Cloak with Jeff the Land Shark, you can replace Nightcrawler with Killmonger. The deck does work with Jeff the Land Shark and Polaris without having the Nightcrawler, but the Nightcrawler is just extra backup. So there's a tons of ways of playing this deck. It's a lot of fun, very resilient. We'll have to see how strong it is going forward with the Enchantress and the Rockslide buff. My prediction is that as far as serious competition going forward is going to be this deck right here. I think Sarah Surfer is going to be the big winner of these buffs, because it does not run Darkhawk, it does not run Enchantress, and this deck has a lot of elements and control. So if you're looking to climb and you have all of these cards, I would look into Sarah Surfer. This is the deck that I think is going to be the strongest competition to the Stature decks, the Stature Black Bolt decks, because 1 power matters. It absolutely matters. Take note of if you're going to continue playing a deck like this, of the 1-point losses or locations that are ties. It absolutely does matter, that 1 point on Enchantress and that 1 point on Rockslide. Now, I want to talk about the 2 other decks that I use to climb to Infinite. I still think this is a viable deck. There are other builds of this deck that don't run Nebula, they don't run Jeff, and they typically will run more of the random discard, like Hellcow or Swordsman. Also, if you don't have Nebula, I think Sunspot is a good addition there. But Jeff just plays well into the Storm package, and the idea is to play Storm, and then having Nebula with Storm is amazing. Having Morbius with Storm is amazing. Having Dracula with Storm is amazing. And this is my preference of a discard deck, because there's not a lot of random discards. Now, my only complaint about this build, and you might want to tinker with it, is that there is a lot of little drops. I feel like there's too many little drops for Colleen, and sometimes it's a bit awkward, where you definitely want to discard Wolverine and Swarm with Colleen, but you don't want to discard Nebula or Morbius. And so it can feel a little bit awkward at times. Now, this is a deck that I played early in the season, and frankly, I just forgot about it. And a lot of people commented on my top 10 meta deck list from earlier this week that I forgot about this deck. And yeah, I just did forget about it. But this is a fun deck right here. Basically, this is a deck that relies on Moon Girl and skipping turn 5 and then dumping a bunch of cards, dumping She-Hulk for 1, dumping Titania and Hitmonkey and Mysterio. So this is a Moon Girl deck in a lot of ways, which has synergy with Quinjet. So I play this deck, and once you've played it, you kind of realize that there's cards that want to be played early, and then there's cards that you want to save and dump on the last turn. I don't see this deck that much anymore. So again, I'm pretty excited about these balance patch changes. I want to try a full Guardians of the Galaxy deck. I want to try a Nimrod Venom deck. And I think Sarah Surfer is going to be in a very competitive place going forward with the adjustments made to Rock Slide and Enchantress. Let me know what you think in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching. Keep on gaming. Bye for now.